This meeting of the Public Utility Commission of Texas will come to order to consider matters that have been duly posted with the Secretary of State for March 12th, 2026. Good morning, everyone. Commissioners, I'd propose today that we take things up mostly in order. We have closed session. I'd propose we do that first. We have folks coming over to talk to us. And then we take up item 5 at the end of the contested case portion of the agenda. I'm recused from that item, if that's all right with everybody.
That sounds good.
Okay. And welcome back home, everybody. We after a brief period away from here, finally the PUC's come back home. And I want to thank everyone that took part in redesigning and redoing this commissioner's hearing room, but in particular, for those of you who know Jonathan Vella, who really spearheaded this effort, not just in working with facilities and our contractors, Julian. We get both of them are here. It used to be Jonathan, now it's Julian. So, but thanks to him, not only did he, really spearhead this, but he was responsible for moving all the furniture, for doing everything in here over the last couple of months. And so much appreciate all that work. So commissioners, we'll go ahead and break for closed session, if that works for you, after we take up the consent agenda. All right. So Sheila, will you lay out the consent agenda, please?
Yes. Good morning, commissioners. First of all, Chairman Gleeson filed a memo stating that he's recused from items 5 and 11. And by individual ballot, the following items are placed on your consent agenda. Items 2, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14, 17, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, and 35. Two items from the Rules and Projects section of the agenda were placed on your consent agenda, and no one signed up to speak on those items. Yes. All right, that's items 47 and 56.
Thank you, Sheila. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as laid out by Sheila.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. All right, now for closed session. So having convened in a duly noticed open meeting, the commission will now at 9:35 on March 12, 2026, hold a closed session pursuant to Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code. It will consult with its attorney pursuant to Section 551.071 of the Code, deliberate personnel matters pursuant to Section 551.074 of the Code, and deliberate security matters pursuant to Section 551.076 of the Code. We'll be right back. The closed session is hereby concluded at 9:53 a.m. on March 12, 2026, and the commission will resume its public meeting. No action will be taken by the commission regarding matters discussed in the closed session. All right, Sheila, that'll take us to item 1, public comment. Do we have anyone signed up for public comment this morning?
Yes, commissioners, we have 7 people that signed up for public comment. How about I can bring up 3 people at a time
That's
to make that more
perfect.
efficient? And is it the standard 3 minutes?
We'll do 3 minutes per person, and just a reminder not to discuss any contested case that's before us on the open meeting today. No specifics. If it's an issue that is contained in a specific case, please speak generally about the policy or the topic, no specifics about the contested cases themselves.
All right. The first 3 people that signed up to speak are Tom Green, Heidi Green, and Cyrus Reed. And I will also mention that we do have 1 person that signed up for item 44 when we get to that on the agenda.
Yes, sir. Any open chair.
All right. Mr. Green, you may go first.
Mic check okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good morning, all. My name is Tom Green. I will use my 3 minutes to speak in general terms regarding the $33 billion Permian Basin Reliability Plan, and Strategic Transmission Expansion Plan, and the industries the plans will serve. My words are intended to inform and inspire, not to disparage in even the slightest. But as you will see, I am an engineer, better with numbers than words, especially when words are offered in a public setting. My main line of work, as I said, is professional engineering. As you likely know, PEs are entrusted above all else to protect the health, the safety, the property, and the welfare of the public. We are also required to be truthful, objective, and forward-thinking, addressing potential future problems that we should have seen. I am not here to be an adversary to anyone. I'm here to be an advocate for the public, just as the law demands. A piece of history, perhaps that few know. This PE duty was born out of unspeakable tragedy. The March 18th, 1937, New London school explosion. A gas leak had been occurring, but the leak was not the root cause. It went undetected because the school board had canceled its contract with its natural gas supplier and approved the use of stripper gas, which is absent that rotten egg mercaptan odorant that we all recognize as natural gas. At 3:17 p.m., just before the school was to be dismissed, a woodshop teacher plugged in a sander that caused a spark, igniting the air gas mixture into a horrific explosion that ripped through the entire school. About 300 students and faculty perished. Over 300 more were injured. It was like a war zone. Ironically, the school saved about $300 per month with the stripper gas. The school board, entrusted to protect the safety of the students and the teachers, balanced that savings with a known but dismissed risk. That misguided balance was the root cause of lost lives, property, and futures. Just a matter of time. In closing, transmission lines and their data centers are the hottest domestic topic in the country right now. Is not Trump's ratepayer protection pledge evidence? Not being squarely on the side of the people on this issue promises to have unsettling political consequences, because it will have unsettling consequences to every Texan, their children, and their children's children. We're talking about livelihoods, security, water, health, welfare, agriculture, and ecology for generations to come. Was that my?
It was. Yeah, we'll extend and you can conclude your remarks.
So I ask
sir.
you, show Texans that we can continue to trust those whom we have entrusted. Blessings to all.
Thank you, sir.
All right, the next speaker is Ms. Green.
Morning. My name is Heidi Green. I have been closely following the transmission line topic. At times, I wish I were like most people in the state who are woefully uninformed and indeed clueless about it. Ignorance is bliss until it's not and it's too late. I think perhaps the best way I can illustrate what I've learned is with an analogy. Imagine we, the ratepayers of Texas, are forced to pay $33 billion to build a club. We pay for the construction, we pay for the mortgage, and at an interest rate of about 9.6%. We pay for the maintenance and repairs, and pretty much all those payments go out of Texas to global investors of the club. And we don't even get to use or visit the club, but much worse than that, the club operations create health and safety impacts for us and other creatures for miles beyond the club. We and nature live in those danger zones, but there is no affordable escape for us at this point. And after paying the club mortgage for at least 32 years, there is no club equity for us or our heirs. But we are left with the continued adverse effects to our family and friends, our livestock, and our general wildlife. All of this is forced. No options, no choices, no input, no meaningful voice, and unlike the much cheaper proposition for no vote. So I have to ask, who amongst any of us here or beyond would say that this is the right thing to do. Well, who other than the club members? It is bad for all Texans. It is bad for our Texas environment. It is bad for our Texas economy. It is short-sighted. It is inescapably irreversible. And to be assured, it is not politically benign. Texans can do better. We must do better. Texans deserve a voice other than the club members. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, next up is Mr. Reed.
Hello, I'm Cyrus Reed, representing Lone Star Chapter of the Sierra Club. I'm here actually to praise the commission, and it's which might be strange for you guys to hear, but many years ago we went through sunset, and one of our main concerns was this should be the Public Utility Commission of Texas to exactly give voice to folks like the folks who've come here. So my praise is this. I really think your staff has done a great job creating this new consumer hub. It's badly needed because lots of people come to the commission, don't know how to interact, and the fact that you now have a consumer hub that has electricity, water, and other information, including how to get involved in things like transmission cases, how to save energy. If you're considering solar, I know that Senator Zaffarini had an important bill. What are the things to watch out for so you're not taken advantage of? So there's a lot more we can do, but I think it's a really good start. And so I wanted to make that public announcement that consumer hub now exists, and I hope people take advantage of it. I had a comment in the energy efficiency. I don't know if it's okay to make it here now and not come up later. It's item 44.
Item 44.
It's also
After
praise.
the presiding officer. Do you want to let him? He signed up for item
Yeah.
44, but would you let him?
Yeah,
address
go
it?
ahead and do it now.
Yeah, it's really fast. It's also a praise. So for years, the public's been put in a strange position, which is utilities come up with their energy efficiency plan. It's unclear how to engage in that plan or make comments. And then the utilities put forward their rate case to pay for that plan. And then when those of us who might get involved in those rate cases say, well, we think you should do these other programs, they say, that's the wrong place to bring up that issue. So I want to praise staff for suggesting that, I believe it'll be next month or the month after, utilities will now be required in a virtual meeting to actually present their plan and allow the public to make comments or have questions about that plan. So I'm here to, it's not my usual spiel, but I'm actually here to praise the Utility Commission for the Consumer Hub and for opening up that energy efficiency plans for public input.
Thank you, Cyrus, and we look forward to hearing similar sentiments at any hearings that we have coming up as well. So thank you.
All right. We have 4 more people. I'm going to go ahead and bring up all 4 since we have room at the table. The next 4 people are Glen Cookie Cook, Kevin Kennedy, Joanna Freeble, I believe, and Molly Vogt. Perhaps if I mispronounce anyone's name, they will correct it. All right. Let's start with Glen Cookie Cook.
Hi, my name's Glen Cookie Cook. I'm from Australia. I'm from one of the largest electrical distribution companies in the Southern Hemisphere called Energy Queensland. So I'm here. I've been speaking at the IEEE conference at the Electrical Safety Workshop. Yesterday I was invited to come across to talk about power line safety. So I'm a power line safety specialist. My role is to try and stop people from contacting overhead power lines. So yeah, I submitted a paper and I got invited to come over, and the Power Line Safety Initiative sponsored me to come across and talk about it. I actually developed a mapping application that maps power lines in Queensland, but it's now been adopted Australia-wide in Australia. So we map every power line so that people can plan their work before they get close to it. So it's been quite popular with the public, and it's been quite successful in reducing overhead power line contacts. So I just wanted to introduce myself and let people know that I'm here if you want to have a chat after the meeting, if you want to have a chat. But yeah, it's just to say I'm here and I want to learn from what's happening in Texas as well. So I thought that'd be a great opportunity.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And I would also recognize, I believe you're doing work with Stan and Michelle Brannon, who's been
correct.
instrumental in a lot of the power line safety work that's gone on in this state over the last, 5 to 7 years. And so appreciate you being here.
Nice, thank you.
All right, the next person that signed up to speak is Mr. Kennedy.
Good morning. My name's Kevin Kennedy.
Yes, sir.
I'm from Mahomet, Texas, which is in Burnet County. As I look around the room this morning, were you ever in grade school and they handed out a little assignment that said, which one of these in this group doesn't belong? Which one's the anomaly? Well, as I look around, I think that could be me. But the reason that I'm here is to talk about House Bill 5066 and all of the cascading events that it created. And it started with the premise that the Permian Basin doesn't have enough energy, and we need to build transmission lines to take energy to the Permian. Well, the Permian is one of the most energy-rich locations in the country, so that's a pretty hard pill to swallow. And it also required that those transmission lines be developed at a breakneck speed. Both of those things raise the question of why. Why would we need to do that, and why do we have to do it immediately? The ERCOT study shows that the need for those don't show up until 2038. So why do we have to do it so quickly? This raises valid concerns. Also, in all of the ERCOT studies, everything that I've seen, they never say what the import capacity is of these import lines. Everything points to the export capability, which is interesting. So the ocean needs more water. We need to build a big pipeline to take water to the ocean, yet when we run the model, surprisingly, it runs the other direction. It exports water from the ocean. The TSP loads. 5066 mandated that the TSP letters be used for the load forecast. Why would that be? That's interesting. Why would you have the pipeline builder tell you how big the pipeline needs to be and how many pipelines need to be built? That raises a question of why would we do that? That was later discredited. ERCOT came about a year ago in May, right after the Permian Basin 765s were approved, and said, hey, these TSP numbers, they're not good. They're wildly exaggerated. We need to dial them back. The data centers dialed back by, I think, 70 some odd %. Yet in testimony last week, your staff electrical engineer quoted those original exaggerated TSP loads as the need for import path 2. I'm directly impacted by import path 2, so that's important to me. So I've heard y'all's process described in many places as a process of review and approval. Well, that seems odd to me. I would think it would be review and contemplate, review and decide, not review and approve. I don't believe that y'all should be asking questions like where and when and how much, but why. And I ask you to do that. Ask why. And maybe I'm not the anomaly. Maybe I'm not the one that doesn't belong. Maybe as a citizen, as a landowner, I am the one that belongs. And I am the one that you represent and that you should protect. And I ask you to do that. Protect me. Thank you.
Thank you for being here, sir.
Next person that signed up to speak is it pronounced Ms. Freeble?
Chairman Gleeson and Commissioners, my name is Joanna Freeble, and I'm from Erath County. I'm here today to talk about the 765 transmission lines. First, I'd like to invite you all to visit us in Erath County and meet the people who are actually affected by this. I can tell you they're like deer in the headlights. They have no clue what's happening to them and how to deal with it to save their property. Those who have money pay attorneys. The rest are just floundering. The money being drained from our already struggling neighborhoods is unprecedented. Money that could help sustain our communities is gone forever. This leads to my central concern, the plan itself. As you likely know, this plan was originally devised by Oncor, presumably after Sempra acquired them and stabilized the company. The plan was sent to ERCOT in 2020, which I'm sure you already know, It was then advanced through intensive lobbying, and in 2021, the initial bill, HB 1607, I believe it was, failed. After Winter Storm Uri was created, the perfect pretext for reliability legislation came about, HB 5066, and passed easily, largely under the radar, and even of many of those who voted for it. The result is the roughly $13.1 billion in spending for just this segment of the plan was effectively authorized without meaningful legislative oversight. A plan conceived by a commercial entity, heavily lobbied for by that same entity, and then enacted into law, and ultimately awarding them the lion's share of the project, appears fundamentally at odds with the PUC's stated regulatory commitment to guardrails that protect us, the ratepayers. Let me leave you with some parting thoughts. These aren't mine. He puts it much more succinctly than I do. The ratepayer protection pledges sound good on CNBC, but pledging to pay for transmission while the system has no mechanism to incentivize new generation is like pledging to widen the highway when nobody is building cars. The bottleneck isn't electrons, it's creating them. The only way to keep electricity prices from rising on a system with growing demand is to increase supply, not moving existing electrons around more efficiently. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. Molly, I'm sorry, I can't read your last name.
Vogt.
Vogt. Okay.
Chairman and Commissioners, thank you so much for the time to speak today. My name is Molly Vogt. I'm here with American Energy Works, and I'm here to urge you to pause and reassess these 765 kV transmission lines. A lot of people look like they're going to be hurt, especially all of us ratepayers, but the property owners more than any of us. The projects represent $33 billion in transmission construction, but once financing and recovery are included, Texans could pay ultimately $80 billion or more through their electric bills over the coming decades. And that matters because Texas families are already feeling the pressure. Since Winter Storm Uri, our electric prices have risen 28%, and Texas now pay more than any of our neighboring states in electricity. Electricity is not a luxury. It's a necessity of modern life. When power becomes unaffordable, the consequences for families are very real. In California today, 3.5 million utility customers are behind on their electric bills. Hundreds of thousands have already had their power disconnected. When people can't afford electricity, they risk far more than just losing their power. Mortgage lenders require utilities to stay on. Landlords require active utilities for leases. When electricity becomes unaffordable, families face homelessness. Before committing Texans to decades of higher cost, it would be wise to reassess the assumptions behind this plan. The demand forecasts driving the Permian Basin transmission build-out are already shifting. Large users such as data centers and AI facilities are planning to bring their own generation, which is great, and that changes the load projections used to justify this scale of transmission. It's important to remember, these transmission lines don't create any new electricity, they only move it. Texas has been blessed with abundant natural gas. Building reliable generation closer to where energy is needed strengthens the grid, protects ratepayers, and avoids carving transmission corridors across private property. When decisions affect Texas land and electric bills for generations, taking the time to get the data right isn't a delay. It's responsible Texas stewardship. Before Texans are asked to pay tens of billions more of dollars for more transmission lines, and before private property is permanently burdened, we should absolutely be certain that we are solving the right problem. Transmission lines move electricity, they don't create it. Let's invest in reliable energy that actually powers Texas and be mindful of the effect these decisions have on Texas wallets and private property. Please pause and reassess the 765 transmission lines. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments this morning.
All right, Commissioners, that concludes public comment.
Perfect. Thank you, Sheila.
Oh, okay. Yes.
All right, Commissioners, that will take us then to item number 3. Sheila, will you lay out item 3, please?
Yes, item 3 is docket number 55840, the application of Windermere Oaks Water Supply Corporation to amend its Certificate of Convenience and Necessity in Burnet County. Before you is a second revised proposal for decision. Windermere filed exceptions to the proposal for decision, and the ALJ declined to consider the exceptions.
Thank you, Sheila. So, Commissioners, I'd recommend we remand this proceeding to docket management. I'd like to see Commission staff update its recommendation for final disposition. Its initial recommendation currently focuses on the system having a temporary manager, which it no longer has. And so I think that needs to be updated. And this will also give the applicant a chance to update the evidence in the record.
I think it sounds good.
I'm in agreement.
I'm in agreement as well.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to remand this proceeding to docket management consistent with our discussion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. Sheila, will you lay out item number 4, please?
Item 4 is docket number 56171, the petition for an emergency order appointing a temporary manager to Blue Cereus LLC without a hearing. Before you is an emergency order extending the appointment of CSWR-Texas as temporary manager for Blue Cereus. The action before the commission on this item is to affirm, modify, or set aside the emergency order.
Thank you, Sheila. Commissioners, I'd approve this request from staff to renew the emergency order. I would modify the order, however, to clarify that CSWR will remain the temporary manager until the STM application in docket 59036 is completed or until the commission orders otherwise.
I'm in agreement.
Same here.
I'll entertain a motion to modify the emergency order consistent with our discussion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. Sheila, will you lay out item 6, please?
Yes. Item 6 is item number 56849, the application of San Antonio Water System to amend its sewer CCN in Bexar County. Before you is SOA Order Number 4, certifying one issue to the commission, and the chairman filed a memo in this docket.
Thank you, Sheila. As it states in my memo, I believe the answer to this question is yes, that a capital improvement plan, including a budget and estimated timeline for construction of all facilities, is necessary to provide full service to the entire proposed service territory. Happy to hear thoughts or answer questions on my memo.
No questions here.
I'm in agreement with your memo.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to delegate authority to OPDM to draft an order on certified issues consistent with my memo.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. Sheila, will you lay out item number 8, please?
Item 8 is docket number 57386, the application of CSWR-Texas for authority to change rates. Before you is a SOA proposal for decision. Parties filed exceptions and replies to exceptions. The SOA ALJ has filed a letter addressing several substantive issues and recommended a correction to the phase-in for sewer rates for newly consolidated systems, and a correction to the date through which rate case expenses were incurred. And the SOA PFD is before you now.
Thank you, Sheila. So, Commissioners, similar to what we've done in the past when we've had cases like this, what I propose we do, I'll go through the areas where I disagreed with the PFD, and we can see how everyone feels about those issues. And then at the conclusion of that, hear if there are any issues that you all would like to raise, and we can have a discussion on that. Does that work for everybody? Okay, so I agreed with the PFD on most issues. The first issue I'd bring up is the return on equity. The PFD recommended a 9.7 ROE with a baseline of 9.6 and then a 0.1 adder to account for business risk. I would reject that adder and think we should adopt an ROE of 9.6.
I'm in agreement with that.
I'm in agreement with 9.6.
Same.
All right, second, on the water rate design, the PFD recommends a tiered rate structure that will be applicable to all systems, and newly acquired systems would have system-wide rates phased in over 3 years. I agreed with the tiered rate structure and the phasing in. I did want to discuss, though, if you all think that the phased-in approach should be applied not just to customers of newly acquired systems, but to all customers. And so this is an issue where we went back and forth on it in my briefing. I I didn't really come down on a particular side of this, so I really wanted to hear what you all think, if that phased-in approach is best applied just to the new customers, or if that should apply more broadly.
I think one of the thoughts on applying it to the newly acquired systems was that their existing rates might be well below what the proposed rates or what the approved rates would be in this rate case. The systems that were previously consolidated have kind of already had that opportunity to kind of phase in their rates, and so it's not as much of a rate shock. The other thing that just for consideration, looking at the mix of all the systems, I guess, that the rate case is going to apply to, those that were previously consolidated represent about 70% of the case on the water side and about 75% on the sewer side. So what's being proposed here is that those that were previously consolidated would automatically, on the water side, receive the phase 3 or the phase 3 rates or the final approved rates, whereas the lower percentage of entities that were newly acquired would be phased in the free phases that were proposed. And then, of course, on the sewer side, that mix was really based on the respective shares of the CSWR-Texas cost of service. So in my mind, this was a good outcome. I think part of what we want to make sure of is that the utility gets a fair rate of return, as well as they have the ability to capture rates that will enable them, quite frankly, to provide service, particularly to entities that are going to require some capital investments. So that was kind of my thoughts on the phased-in rate approach.
So you're okay with the PFD recommendation to have phased-in only for newly acquired systems?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
I think Commissioner Jackson, thank you. I agree to just apply the rates to the newly acquired system so the rates for existing customers don't fluctuate between lower and then higher. It could be confusing. So
Yeah, I would agree with, and just to confirm, Chairman, you were saying that you went back and forth on the new rates phased in for everyone, or just for the subset, or?
Just on that issue more holistically, we went through the kind of 3 discussion points on that topic. And yeah, it's just, I agree that they should be phased in. I just we were having a hard time figuring out, should it be more broadly applied, not just to the newly acquired system customers, but more broadly to everyone. And yeah, it was really a 50-50 call for me. So if everyone's comfortable with the PFD application just to newly acquired system customers, I'm good with that.
Yeah, I was in agreement with the PFD on just the newly acquired systems.
Okay. So next, sewer rate design. The LJ's recommended a single phased-in rate for all sewer systems, or in the alternative, a rate structure with a flat volumetric rate. Again, we discussed this a lot. Where I came down actually is to adopt a flat rate of 92.77 cents without a phase-in for all sewer customers. I thought through my briefing that approach made the most sense here for sewer rate design. Happy to hear your thoughts on that.
I agree in my, vast experience in sewage rates, which is not a lot, but I believe it's more traditional to have a single flat rate. So I'm in agreement with that.
But you're gaining more experience with every successive
I'm so
year.
thankful to gain more and more experience on it, yes.
Yeah, I'm in agreement.
And just to note, I mean, the rates that are in place right now were the proposed rates, which are actually a little higher than what that Phase 3 sewer rate would be of 92.77. Also, there are fewer new adds in terms of newly consolidated systems were only 4. So I think having a flat rate, and also the ease of being able to manage that probably favors having what you suggest, which is the flat rate, and the 92.77, which is the Phase 3 sewer rate.
Okay. And then finally, for me, issue on supplemental rate case expenses. The PFD authorized recovery of rate case expenses through September 30th. Central States Water requested in its exceptions to recover rate case expenses incurred after the hearing on the merits through October. As Sheila said, there were corrections to this. Consistent with the PFD, I think rate case expenses incurred in the proceeding after September 8th, 2025 should be included in the regulatory asset for CSWR. That move to the 8th was a correction. There was a clerical error, but I think that's the correct date.
I'm in agreement.
I'm in agreement.
Sounds good to me too as well.
Okay, that concludes the issues I had that were in opposition to the PFD. Do you all have any other issues we need to discuss?
I'm good.
No, thank you for flagging those.
Yes.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion to adopt the proposal for decision in part and reject in part consistent with our discussion and delegate to OPDM the authority to request a number run from staff.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails.
Commissioners, can you all give me just a moment on that?
Yes, ma'am.
I think we're good. Thank you. I just want to, I wanted to confirm that a number run was needed, but yes, because of the change, I think to the PFD and the sewer rates, that's a change to the PFD. That is, we are exactly where we need to be. Thank you.
Perfect. And no need to apologize. Make sure we get it right. So thank you for checking.
We had all kinds of flow charts. If it is this happens, then a number run's needed. Yes.
All right, Sheila, will you lay out item 13, please?
Yes. Item 13 is docket number 57568, the application of El Paso Electric for authority to change rates. The commission considered this proceeding at the last open meeting and delegated authority to OPDM to file a request for staff to conduct a number run to reflect the commission's decisions, not unlike what y'all just did. Commission staff filed a response seeking clarification on several questions, and the chairman filed a memo.
Thank you, Sheila. As laid out in my memo, these are the customers I believe that this should be applied to. Only customers that are grandfathered in are those who submitted and had accepted by El Paso Electric an application for interconnection prior to the commission's December 18th, 2017 order in docket 46831 and who are currently grandfathered in with respect to that. So I think that clarification, appreciate staff asking for that clarification. We need to get this right, but in my opinion, that's what we were trying to accomplish.
That was my understanding as well.
My understanding as well.
And Sheila, as this is just clarification, I don't believe we need a motion here for anything.
That is correct.
Perfect.
And I just the room knows, I just leaned back and made eye contact with Daryl Tejan to confirm that staff has what they need. And he nodded, so yes.
And he gave me a thumbs up, so we've got everything we need.
We take the law very seriously. We do not have
That's right.
discussions outside of filings.
Sheila, will you hit item number 15, please?
Item 15 is docket number 58519, the application of Oncor Electric to amend its CCN for the Rockhound switch to Connell switch 345 kV transmission line in Midland and Martin counties. Before you is a revised proposed order, and the chairman filed a memo in this docket.
Thank you, Sheila. As my memo states, I would add in reinsert finding of fact 109, which was deleted from the proposed order in this docket. This is a finding of fact that has been in previous commission orders, and I think it's appropriate to retain it here.
I would agree.
I would agree as well.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the revised proposed order as modified by my memo.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. Sheila, will you lay out item number 16, please?
Item 16 is 58531, the petition of commission staff to update opt-out list maintained pursuant to PURA section 39.653 subsection D. Before you is a proposed order. No corrections or exceptions were filed, and the chairman filed a memo in this docket.
Thank you, Sheila. As the memo states, kind of in that last paragraph, I do have a concern that the record doesn't clearly show that notice was successfully provided to one of the customers associated with this. And so because of that, I remand this proceeding to docket management to address that evidentiary issue.
I'm in agreement.
Agreed.
I agree with sending it back to make that correction.
I'll entertain a motion to remand this proceeding to docket management consistent with my memo.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. Sheila, will you lay out item number 18, please?
Item 18 is docket number 58791, SWEPCO's compliance filing to update Dolet Hills rate rider in accordance with the final order in docket number 51415. Before you is a revised proposed order.
Thank you, Sheila. So Commissioners, I'd approve the revised proposed order, but with one modification. The effective date should be the date of the first day of the billing month that begins after at least 3 business days after the final order is filed, if that's clear enough.
Crystal.
Yeah. So,
Agreed.
all right, with that, I'll entertain a motion to approve the revised proposed order as modified by our discussion.
So moved.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. Next, Sheila, will you lay out item number 24, please?
Item 24 is docket number 59029, the application of Oncor Electric to amend its CCN for the Longshore switch to drill hole switch 765 kV transmission line project. Before you is Oncor's appeal of SOA order number 12.
Thank you, Sheila. So as she stated, this appeal concerns whether the SOA ALJ properly granted intervention to ABB Ranches, Tom Green, and American Stewards of Liberty, ASL. So after pretty long discussion in my briefing where I came down on this is I would deny the interventions of ABB Ranches and Tom Green. Neither really demonstrate they have a property interest located in the CCN study area, but I would allow ASL to remain in the case. They have several members that have standing on their own right.
I would agree with that analysis.
I'd agree as well.
I'm in agreement.
With that, I will entertain a motion to grant the appeal in part and deny in part consistent with our discussion.
So moved.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion prevails. Sheila, will you lay out item number 25, please?
Yes, item 25 is the same docket, docket number 59029, the application of Oncor delivery to amend its CCN for the 765 kV transmission line. Before you are issues certified by the SOA ALJ and SOA order number 11 in this proceeding.
Thank you, Sheila. So as she stated, the SOA ALJ certified several issues. I don't believe the commission needs to answer these issues. The SOA ALJ already resolved these issues by granting Oncor a good cause exception to our rules. So I don't think that that addressing this is necessary.
In agreement.
I agree the issues have been addressed as well.
I'll entertain a motion to delegate authority to OPDM to draft an order on certified issues consistent with our discussion.
So moved.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevailed. All right, so then that'll take us back then to item number 5, and I will turn the proceeding over to Commissioner Jackson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next up is item number 5. Sheila, will you please lay out this item?
Yes, ma'am. Item number 5 is docket number 56654, the application of CSWR-Texas Utility Operating Company and Greg Richards, trustee of the Castlecomb Trust, for the sale, transfer, or merger of facilities and to decertify a portion of the City of Kerrville's CCN in Kerr County. A commission order was filed in this docket in December, and commission staff timely filed a motion for rehearing. Commissioner Hjaltman filed a memo in this docket.
Commissioner Hjaltman, would you like to lay out your memo?
Sure. Back in December when we had this case, I had filed a previous memo as well. And in that case, we ultimately decided to approve final rates in that case that were the interim rates that were approved by the SOA ALJ in docket 54565. I had to read that because it was confusing. Staff has now filed to limit motion for rehearing. I recommend we grant that motion to only clarify finding of fact 50.
I'm in agreement with your memo.
I agree as well.
Happy to make the motion, or you can, Madam Chairman. I move that we grant staff's motion for rehearing to revise finding of fact number 50 as I outlined in the memo. If you agree, I also recommend that we instruct staff to file a clean copy of the revised tariff approved by the order on rehearing in accordance with order paragraph 13.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jackson. With that, that's the conclusion of the contested case portion of our agenda, and we'll move now to rules and projects. First up on the agenda will be item number 40. That is project number 38533, PUC review of the ERCOT budget. And Commissioner Hjaltman, you filed a memo.
I did. My memo outlines 2 additions to help support the large load interconnection initiative. First, I know ERCOT has been mentioning development of a portal for a large load interconnection process. I'd like to add that as a specific milestone using the same Q4 2026 target completion date as the batch study revision requests. And then the second item I add that I think would be helpful would be some data about the work ERCOT is doing in the current process of interconnecting loads that are currently in the process under PGRR 115. Just want to keep track of that, get some data back and forth of what they're energizing, what they're moving forward, what the studies are in the process. And I hope that will be something that they're able to provide.
Might be helpful if ERCOT would come up on this. Good morning, Jeff. Good morning, Rebecca.
Good morning, Jeff Billa with ERCOT.
So you've read the memo. What are your thoughts on the request from Commissioner Hjaltman?
Yeah, I think we're supportive of those requests. Yeah, obviously we've been talking about putting a portal in place. We think that that's important, and so we're supportive of that. Yeah, as well as the additional reporting.
Jeff has it on, so no button. Rebecca Zerwas for ERCOT. We've been working with staff on the performance measures and we'll continue working to find the best home for the reporting. We are doing reporting through TAC and LLWG, and we can also make reporting at the commission through the budget process as well.
Okay, perfect.
Great. Thank you.
All right, good additions.
The question, Harika Basaran for staff. We are going to incorporate your additions and then file a revised one so it's in the record for the ERCOT reporting.
Perfect. Commissioners, any other questions?
No, I appreciate the specific notes for both of these. It's helpful.
Perfect.
Good additions.
Yeah.
Performance measures are good.
Thank you to ERCOT for being amenable to these additions. Thanks, y'all. Item number 41 is next. That's project number 59142, review of ERCOT's interconnection process for large loads. Jeff can come back up.
Okay, and they asked me to plug in, so we're going to try this out.
All right.
So exciting.
Blazing a new trail, Jeff.
Wow.
Very fancy. Uh-oh, only one.
Somebody unplugged it for their computer.
Probably have to work through some technical difficulties. I do
Got that.
appreciate, though, for those of us that are a little older, the paper copy is still very thankful for that.
And are you all seeing the presentation at your desk? as well?
Yes, ma'am. All right, Jeff.
All right. Jeff Billa with ERCOT again. So, Commissioners, I am pleased to report today that ERCOT has filed the Batch Zero revision request, PGRR 145 and NPRR 1325. We filed those last Wednesday. They're pretty long documents, I think almost 50 pages in total, but really they cover, really the contents are focused on 2 aspects. So one is the large load interconnection requests that are currently in the process. What are the criteria for those to be included in batch zero? And the second item is the process, how we will perform that study and how that results in an actionable transmission plan at the end of the study. We are continuing to engage with stakeholders. We've had a workshop on Tuesday. had a really good discussion at the workshop. Based on that discussion, we intend to file comments on the revision request based on the feedback that we heard from the stakeholders to make some updates. That was our 4th workshop. We have our 5th workshop on March 24th. So we'll continue to work through that. We'll continue to take feedback from stakeholders and work through the issues. I also want to note that we did briefly discuss at Tuesday's workshop both the concepts of bring your own generation or co-location as well as CLRs and how we could potentially fit that in those concepts into Batch Zero, and we're continuing to work on those issues. This slide is a update of one that I've previously presented to you. It has, I think last time it didn't have all of the dates filled in, but we now have dates for all of the workshops, or at least 7 workshops. If we need to add additional workshops, we will. But this is essentially the path, the march towards the June 1st board meeting, which is where we intend to bring the Batch Zero revision requests, PGR 145 and NPR 1325. We are also intending on posting the both CLR and BYOG revision request, I'll say early April, which would still allow us time to get those to the June board meeting on an urgent basis. And then finally, I wanted to just highlight one issue that we wrestled with as we were writing the revision request, and that is how do we align the revision request with the rulemaking for 58481, the interconnection standard rulemaking. And as we thought about that, we looked at 2 different options. The first option, which is the option that we went with, was to take the draft PFP in 5841 and replicate that within the revision request. And the reason for doing that is that we know that the timing of 5841 is not likely that would be in place this summer. And so by replicating that language into the revision request, it would allow us to move forward with the Batch Zero study earlier, so starting that study this summer. Now, the downside is obviously that the 5841 rule that could change and could differ from what we put in the revision request. That may be okay because Batch Zero could be different from ongoing batch studies, but there is a chance that they may not match at the end of the day. However, our intention would be that as the 5841 changes, we would copy those changes into the revision request, at least as those change up until the June board meeting. The other option that we contemplated and did not go with was writing the revision request such that it would point towards the rule. So it would just point to the entry criteria for getting into a study, the interconnection agreement criteria, those sorts of things. It would point to the rule. But doing that would mean that we would need to wait for the rulemaking to be complete before we could start the Batch Zero study. Which would likely push that off several months depending on the timing on when 5841 is complete. So obviously we're open to guidance on that, but for right now we've chosen the path of going with option 1. So just wanted to highlight that for y'all to think about. So with that concludes what I have to present today, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Jeff. Agree and appreciate you going with option 1, and appreciate the clarification that the PFP stage of our rule is a starting point for the discussion, and allowing for good work to be done throughout that process to then be reflected in the NPRR and PGR. So appreciate that. Commissioners, questions for Jeff? Thoughts?
Just to clarify, so as we make changes, you'll go back and change the PGR and NPRR right now. But obviously, timeline-wise, we'll hit a point where we're not moving as fast, and that's when we'll need to kind of give you more direction.
Yes, yeah. So we will. Over March, April, May, To the extent that the rule changes in 5841, the proposal changes, we will file comments and reflect that in the PGRR. But after, obviously after the board approves the PGR, then, at that point, there's a chance that they could diverge.
And Commissioner, if I may, you might want to think about the April 17th board meeting the April 17th open meeting as being an inflection point for you all, just thinking about when those paths might start diverging.
Okay, that's helpful.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Barksdale. You and I talked about that as really kind of a drop dead date for where we need to know, just based on what will go on after that open meeting at ERCOT, and they need to be pretty certain as to what we're looking for. So appreciate that.
Well, I think also, Commissioner Hjaltman, you mentioned timing constraints, and really here it's more Administrative Procedure Act process.
Right.
And timelines there to ensure that we comply with, publication deadlines.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
So Jeff, only other question I had, and I think it's one you'd probably anticipate asking, as I told you I'd ask you every time that we were up here. Appreciate all the work on batch zero, but we have a number of loads that were in this process, pretty far through this process prior to batching, that are even sometimes prior to the PGR 115. How are we looking to incorporate those into this process, potentially get some of those projects, particularly those that don't need any type of transmission upgrades, approved and through the process so that they can get moving forward and really be used in batching only as firm load for the modeling?
Yeah, it's the existing process, as we've stated many times, the existing process is still in effect. As drafted, it would remain in effect until July 15th of 2026. Obviously, that can change as the PGR evolves, but that existing process, we've just approved studies this week. We're still approving the energization of projects, and so we will continue to follow that. The PGR 145 will lay out how we think about those projects and how those projects can be firmed up. We heard a lot of comments at the workshop on Tuesday. We're intending to take those comments back and address those through our own filed comments. But I think we understand that projects that have met certain milestones, that we need to make sure that we are respecting that and moving those forward in the process.
Appreciate that. Commissioners, any other questions for Jeff?
Good.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate all the work.
Thanks.
All right, next is item number 42. That's project number 58481, rulemaking to implement large load interconnection standards under PURA section 37.0561. This is the proposal for publication. I filed a memo here, but I think let's have Jesse go ahead and lay out the rule, and then I'll lay out my memo and we can have a discussion.
Good morning, Jesse Horn for Commission staff. Before you is Commission staff's recommended proposal for publication, which was also taken up at the last open meeting. The proposed rule would require a large load customer to execute an intermediate agreement prior to inclusion in an interconnection study. And as part of the intermediate agreement, a large load customer would be required to provide certain disclosures, demonstrate site control, and post financial security in the amount of $100,000 per megawatt. Additionally, the proposed rule would require a large load customer not later than 30 days after ERCOT completes the interconnection study to execute an interconnection agreement that requires the large load customer to update its disclosures, pay non-refundable interconnection fee in the amount of $100,000 per megawatt, post financial security for significant equipment or services, pay contribution in aid of construction for direct interconnection costs, and post financial security for system upgrades. Finally, if approved today, the PFP would still need to be submitted to the Texas Register. And so the comment deadline was originally posted for March 27th. Staff would ask for the Commission's approval to move that to April 17th if approved today.
Thank you, Jesse. Commissioners, I'm sure you had many of the same conversations over the past period of time that I've had. The two issues I addressed specifically in my memo, I'm not typically one to file a memo to make changes to a PFP at this stage, but I think I was convinced that on the financial requirements, reducing that from 100,000 a megawatt to 50,000 makes sense as kind of a top end number. This way, we're not having a lot of discussion about $50,001 through 100,000. And then I was also convinced that, particularly at the beginning phases of commercial development, site control is probably not appropriate for it to be defined by having to have a long-term lease or a deed. And so I think broadening that to include options for those makes a lot of sense. And I'll say, just kind of generally as I'm thinking about this, the more conversations I've had, and I've talked to Barksdale and Jesse about this, I think it's appropriate to take all these gating issues that we've been talking about and try to find ways that we can align the regulatory commitments we're looking for with the commercial milestones in the development process for these large loads. And so that's kind of how I'm starting to think about this, and think about it through the lens of a kind of gradual escalator. So if it's 50,000 of financial commitment, perhaps initially you owe, let's just say, for argument's sake, 10,000 or 20,000, and then that escalates up as you progress through the kind of commercial viability, the commercial operations of the facility. And so that's how I've started to think about it. As the folks I've talked to about that seem to think that makes sense. And so I think broadly, comprehensively, that's how I'm going to start thinking about all of these gating issues. I will say one thing I didn't put in my memo that I've also been talking to them about is right now it has the PFP has money that's retained for, say, projects that fall out, that money going to reduce rate base. And I think our goal there is really to reduce end use customer rates and not necessarily rate base. So I think it would also be helpful to get a lot of commentary on how that money, in whatever amount, can best be used to reduce rates while not having kind of secondary or tertiary impacts that were not really beneficial to the overall system. So with that, Jesse, I don't know if you have any questions for me, if anything was unclear in my memo, but happy to take questions or comments.
One clarifying question, because the memo does talk about changing the $100,000 per megawatt to $50,000 per megawatt. There's a second piece in the PFP that talks about that same sort of, it's the interconnection fee. It does serve a different purpose, but to the extent that it's also $100,000 per megawatt, was the intent for that to mirror the reduction to 50,000?
So that's what I was thinking, that those would be aligned, but I don't know that that's necessarily the right answer. So I'm happy to get comments. I think it would be beneficial to get comments on whether or not that's appropriate for both.
Just quickly, I appreciate the memo. I agree. I think working on developments in the past, and prior jobs I've had, I think this does more in line with, especially when many of these are greenfield spaces. I think this is helpful. I think the expansion is helpful as well. I think I look forward to reading comments discussing 100,000 megawatt versus 50,000 per megawatt. I also agree. I would like to see the idea of the rate base issue being fleshed out as well in the comments that we receive from stakeholders. And yeah, I appreciate all the hard work that you guys have done on this.
I appreciate the work too. I do want to remind everyone that this is just a proposal for publication. I've heard continually in meetings that, we need to make sure that the language getting out there right now is right, because we don't want to send the wrong market signals, which of course we don't ever want to send the wrong market signals, but we have to start somewhere. We have to start somewhere with language, and that's where we are right now. So just remember, it's just a proposal for publication. Building off that, we also don't want to delay anymore. We need to get this going. We don't want to delay economic development any more than we already are with wordsmithing. So I like the changes that are suggested by you, Mr. Chairman. So thank you for filing the memo. When I look at any of these problems, I always ask, what are we solving for? And what are we solving for in the large load interconnection? And this has a lot that we're solving for. Our goal is to standardize the requirements, to create certainty in the protocols, to protect other ratepayers from disproportionate cost, and not set too high of a threshold to discourage business development. And that's really, those things are something that we have to pay attention to as we're going through this. And I know there's concerns in the PFP that we're still working through, and I think your changes address many that came and talked to me about that. I also would like to I didn't file a memo on it, but I think it's something that we could better understand and look at in regards to the 80-20 non-refundable versus refundable amounts. It's something that I'm very interested in getting more feedback on. And as you mentioned, kind of matching those milestones, maybe that's something we can look at in regards to that as well, as having that match more of the upfront. The first step is not the non-refundable part, but as you get further along in the process, that's where the non-refundable comes from. And then when I'm also looking at this rule, and I know it's helpful for y'all to know where we're coming from, so I'll put this out there. I've unfortunately been kind of thinking too much with blinders on about data centers only, and I had to remind myself 75 megawatts is catching a lot of load that's not just data centers. So I really do want to hear comments from those that we're capturing and how this is going to affect them moving forward. So please make sure you're following those.
I thought the comment that you made about aligning the rule with typical business practices and processes made a lot of sense because, again, what we're talking about here is large build-out of facilities. I know you talked earlier or mentioned earlier from a timing perspective of what that commitment might be. And then I think you mentioned kind of like, addressing whether and when it's refundable. And just to kind of reiterate again what we talked about earlier is that this is a proposal, and what we are trying to do is to end up with the best work product that we can. And so we would encourage everyone to kind of weigh in and to help us kind of refine this process. But I think the approach that we're taking, again, to align it with typical business practices is a really good kind of vision and process that we should be embracing. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, and Commissioner Hjaltman, I agree. I think if we're generally good with the framework, as I described it, kind of that gradual progressive escalator, I think all of the issues, whether it's the 80-20, refundable, non-refundable, all of those issues kind of viewed through that lens, if you have an escalator, I think my thought is we can address a lot of the concerns that companies are going to have to put up too much at the forefront before they even know if they're going to get the amount of megawatts through the batch process that they need to move their project forward. And so I think the gradual escalator as a framework just really works well for this.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
if you don't mind, I'd just like to summarize what I think I heard you all talk about so that it's clear what changes we're going to make to the PFP prior to your signature, and hopefully we will capture those changes correctly and we can get your signature after the meeting. Of course, if we messed something up, we'll be happy to bring it back to the March 26th open meeting. So I think I heard 4 changes, 2 of them relating to the dollar per megawatt. So we will change the financial security that's being required to $50,000 per megawatt, and we will also change the interconnection fee to be $50,000 per megawatt. And then the second group of changes relate to the optionality that you discussed in your memo, so that during the intermediate agreement phase, we will add the possibility of using an option to lease or buy as evidence. And then during the interconnection agreement phase, we will add the concept of a purchase and sale agreement as a choice that a company could use as evidence. So those would be the 4 changes that we'll make to the PFP. Everything else that you've talked about, staff is absolutely open to hearing about, and we welcome your feedback, but we explicitly want stakeholders to provide commentary on things like the appropriate way to handle system upgrades, the appropriate treatment of that kind of 80-20 proportion, and other things that you talked about. But those will be addressed through the comments and as revisions to the rule as we get to the proposal for adoption stage. Most notably, we will not be changing anything in the PFP related to aligning the delivery of those financial securities to the regular business cycle that you were talking about. So we're not going to be introducing the concept of a graduated fee over the course of this process in the proposal for publication. Yes, ma'am.
You can't, propose something new if it's not in it. Will that be within grounds of the proposal as a new idea, or will it be?
I'm not a lawyer, so I shouldn't provide a legal opinion, but my based on my experience, I think we have provided sufficient notice that this is an issue that's up for deliberation, but I will defer to my lawyer sitting to my left or to the commission counsel on my right.
I think particularly to the extent that it would potentially lower the burden on the folks that are put under these obligations, that we would be well within the
We're not
bounds.
raising, we're going. Okay. All right, thank you. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's a great clarification, Commissioner. Thank you.
And I think, Barstow, your summary was spot on.
Okay,
So,
great. Thank you.
perfect. Commissioners, any other thoughts or questions? All right. So with that, I will entertain a motion to approve the proposal for publication with modifications consistent with my memo and our discussion.
So moved.
I second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion prevails. All right, next up is item number 43. That's project number 58479, rulemaking for net metering arrangements involving a large load co-located with an existing generation resource under PURA section 39.169, and this is the PFA proposal for adoption. I wrote a memo in this, which was well received, and I got no comments in my email inbox really late last night. But Jesse, if you want to go ahead and lay out the rule, and then we can have a discussion. I will say, commissioners, this rule does not have to be adopted today, and so given how late my memo came out and really kind of what I'm thinking about, probably not necessarily being something everyone else was thinking about, I'd propose we have a discussion, but plan to bring this to the March 26th open meeting to finally adopt it, if that works for everybody. Okay. All right, Jesse.
Jesse Horn for Commission staff. So before you is Commission staff's recommended adoption order and a memo from staff with proposed red line changes. The proposed red line changes are related to aspects of the rule that the Commission asked staff to clarify at the last open meeting. And those red line changes include the following 5. One, we added to the definition for an interconnecting distribution service provider, a transmission distribution utility, municipally owned utility, or electric cooperative that is certificated or otherwise authorized to provide either retail electric service or retail electric delivery service. Secondly, the rule would be modified to require the applicants to file a completed large load interconnection study or a study report from another completed study process with their application. Third, we made explicit that the Commission may impose conditions that include requiring one or more of the listed conditions. 4, the red line changes would remove reference to the large load customer and describing what is required to make capacity available. And the thought there was that the large load customer may separately be required to curtail as a condition on the net metering arrangement. And so we wanted to provide clarity that we're not trying to mix up the two. And then finally, the red line changes would make explicit that nothing in the rule limits the Commission's authority to impose conditions on a net metering arrangement under PURA.
Thank you, Jesse. Commissioners, questions for Jesse on the PFA as proposed prior to me laying out my memo?
No, I can wait till after your memo.
Okay. So the memo, as it states, really just pertains to paragraph D3, and I'm going to look to my attorney in front of me and make sure I stay on track and don't talk about any specifics to a current contested case. So what I was thinking here is there may be other reasons other than physical characteristics changing of the proposed load or configuration of that load that may require restudy. And my concern was if restudy is necessary, that could cause ERCOT to potentially miss its deadline of 120 days. And there are really no guardrails then around when we would see that recommendation. And the concern is if we don't adhere to that 120 days or require or allow for other reasons that restudy could allow for the clock to start over, we would kind of be in this unknown territory where it would make sequencing these, they may require hearings. It would make that really difficult because we could get that recommendation on day 121. We could get it on day 365. We could get it at any point in time. And one of the difficulties I know is talking to Commission Counsel has been, how are we going to sequence all of this? And so this is really just an attempt to have a discussion around in an instance like that, should there be other reasons that we would that restudy should then require the applicant to submit a new application, or, ways to address a situation where that 120 days may be, not, that ERCOT could not adhere to that 120-day deadline. I will say, the statute doesn't provide for any consequence if that 120 days is missed, which is different from the 60-day deadline we have. If we miss that, the application is deemed approved. And so that is not a deadline that we can go past. So again, that was it. I said it jokingly, but I did receive late last night quite a number of comments about this. And like I said, my intention is not to adopt something today, but really kind of work through this, bring this back to the 26th. But I do think this is an issue we need to address that I had not really thought about prior to this week. So that's where I am on this. Happy to hear your thoughts.
I'll just jump out there. I appreciate the memo, and I do agree that there may be some scenarios that occur throughout the net metering process and the implementation of the rule that may not have been completely contemplated in the language that we've drafted thus far in the PFA. And I do think there could be some, I think there's several different processes by which we could choose to proceed that could account for other procedures that may require a rule change or a small tweak to the rule change, or that could also be in-house procedurally that we could also take into account. But I do want to, I want to strongly underscore and bold that while there is no consequence in statutory language for 120 days being either abated, tolled, or missed, that 120 days is a very important time frame for us as the commission, because the 60-day time frame, there are some consequences. And so in order for us to ensure that we're facilitating this process as expeditiously and as thoroughly as I believe the legislation was intended as well, I do think there are some things we could work on or tweak, but they could be ruled procedurally, or they could be things we do here.
I agree with your memo, and agree that, we don't want to tie our hands when we don't necessarily know the future. And along those same lines, I had a memo to file but did not end up doing it because I was going back and forth on different scenarios in regards to where capacity could be made available, the language in the rule that we have laid out, and using alternative generation sources that might provide different benefits. There are so many things in flux right now, and we don't know necessarily how some of this is going to work out. So I don't know if it's maybe something we could talk about. Obviously, we know that words that we choose and put in these rules are very important, and I do not want to hoist us by our own petards, and so I think we should have that discussion if anybody's willing to do it.
Yeah, I think if there are changes that you were considering putting in a memo and you want to discuss it now, I'm happy to allow for time here to have that conversation.
So I don't know if anyone's, if y'all had the same meetings I did, people came and, the make capacity available and replacing with just different generation sources right now is, and maybe Jesse and Barksdale can talk through this of how it's laid out in the statute, or in the rule right now as we have it.
Right. So Jesse Horn for Commission staff, the way that the rule is currently written is that to make capacity available, the existing generation resource has to make its capacity available. And so if that's a condition that the commission imposes on a net metering arrangement, particularly for a dispatchable thermal resource, where any condition imposed on a net metering arrangement, that would have to be one of the conditions. The way that the rule is written is that the meaning of that, to make dispatchable capacity available, is that existing generation resource has to be the one to provide that capacity to the system. And part of that ties back into the fact that the statute requires specifically for the dispatchable capacity that it be the same amount that was provided before implementation of the net metering arrangement, for that same amount to be available after implementation of the net metering arrangement.
So that would mean accomplishing that solely through curtailment of that load.
That's right. The load would have to stop consuming from that existing generation resource.
And so as I was looking at the statute as written, I was going back and forth of whether it was just megawatts for megawatts and more neutral, or it was that specific megawatts. And that's kind of where I was going back and forth on.
Well, and Commissioner, if I may, to just address something that I think I heard the chairman said, when we're talking about curtailing the load consumption from that specific resource, I think what we're hoping to imply here is that if the load has backup generation on site, it can switch over to that to free up the megawatts from the existing generation resource to go onto the grid. And so to then address the point that I think I hear you trying to tease out here is that I think staff's opinion is that if an alternative generation resource were to be developed at the same site, behind the same point of interconnection, then that should be a similar concept as having a backup generation unit tied to the load. Because I think that concept of an existing generation resource making its dispatchable capacity available is not only about the megawatts, but it's also about the location. Because the location of where those megawatts are injected into the grid matter during an emergency. And conducting analysis on if there's an alternative generation resource that's 10 miles away or 100 miles away or 500 miles away, that will change ERCOT's analysis of both transmission security as well as resource adequacy. And so I think we believe that those words should be read to mean that it needs to be at the point of interconnection where that load and that existing generation resource have proposed their net metering arrangement. Now, that's our opinion, and if you choose something else, of course, we're here to support you.
No, I think that's helpful to think about as far as other items to consider. So that, and I knew, this rule, obviously, we don't like to reopen rules, but Chapter 25 is coming back up soon. So as technology develops or changes, we could always readdress it. But it's something to keep in mind, as some people had been reading it that way. But I think point of reliability and the megawatts needing to be where the congestion or constraint might be is something to take into account. So thank you for that.
Any other issues that you plan to talk about in your memo?
You're the memo man. I think I'm good.
Well, no, because you didn't write the memo. So, yeah. Okay, again, I'm sure that we'll get a lot of feedback on this conversation on the memo over the next 2 weeks, and would encourage that. Again, we're trying to get this right and account for everything that we can. So the plan will be to bring this back to the next open meeting, which is going to be mostly a rules and projects open meeting. Okay. Anything else, commissioners, on this one? Okay.
Chairman, before we leave
Yes,
this,
sir.
I just want to be clear about expectations. We're certainly happy to work with your office or any of your offices to help develop language that would implement the intent behind your memo here. But I think since the March 26th meeting is an essential moment for this rule, I don't know why I don't just say it. We need to either vote it out or it's going to die. We need to just have clear red line language, I think, consideration next.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first step is to get a little more briefing on some of these issues. And then from there, yeah, if any of us desire a change, we'll come with red line language to incorporate into the draft. Okay. The next we're going to bring up items 44 and 45 together. So that is item 44 is project number 38578, Energy Efficiency Implementation Project, 16 Tax Section 25.181. And item 45 is project number 59166, 2027 Electric Utility Energy Efficiency Plan and Report under 16 Tac 25.181. Hi, Ramya.
Take a breath.
Yes.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ramya Ramaswamy for Commission staff. So my division is about 2 years old right now, so I thought it's a good time to come and give an update. We held our Spring Energy Efficiency Forum last Tuesday. We had some very good presentations from Texas Energy Poverty Research Institute, TEPRI, from SECO, State Energy Conservation Office, and HVAC-U, a program in Michigan where they combine energy efficiency with workforce development, specifically aligned to train contractors in rural area. In the afternoon, we also requested utilities to present on an area or a program that they are working on in 2026. So this is slightly different from how we have done in the past. So because that way we can hear them speak about something that they are trying to achieve in 2026 and present to us any challenges that they are facing, how they plan to measure these programs, and what outcomes they would like to see. The results were quite mixed, and we think that it is a sign of the transition that we are undergoing as a division as we mature in our mission of energy efficiency and what that means. Happy to take any questions if you have any.
Commissioners, questions, thoughts for Ramya?
Yeah, I'm just going to say thank you. I know getting something started up from the ground is not an easy task, and really just wanted to offer help. Is there any way you can get support from us or anything the commission can do on our side to really raise awareness, raise the importance of the matter? Happy for feedback.
So just to lay it out, Commissioner, the forum is not very new. I mean, we've been doing this for a long time. It used to be called Energy Efficiency Implementation Project. We are just trying to reframe what it means to the energy efficiency stakeholder community at large. So to make sure that the utilities get an opportunity to provide, to showcase the programs that they already have and any issues and challenges that they face, to bring it out and to have that a place to showcase, basically, and to also present any challenges. Because I have met people who have showed up to these forums. I mean, in fact, the forums this time, in the past, the very first time, even mentioning that they didn't know Texas did energy efficiency when we've been, one of the first states that adopted energy efficiency rules. So this definitely, the utility should be thinking about how can we use this forum to talk about something that they are doing, to present to even the contractors what they would like to see. And in the same way, we are happy to also promote anybody else, like how we had TEPRI come and present a research that they have done to see what else is happening out there, what we can showcase in these forums. So it's a two-way street. So it'll be good if everybody takes a good look at what this can mean to them.
Awesome. Thank you.
So Ramya, you brought up a forum for concerns to be brought up. Have you heard any concerns from the companies at this point?
Well, the utilities are facing challenges on program delivery. So what does that mean to them? How to also remain within the cost effectiveness, cost caps that the rule has in place today. But in general, and the larger utilities definitely are having an uphill battle on making sure that they meet the goals while they also keep track of everything else that is required. There is a disconnect, though, between what is happening in the regulatory changes that we are doing here at the Commission and the program design and the people who are actually engaged in doing that.
If I may add to that a little bit, we had great attendance at the forum. However, the majority of the attendees were energy efficiency personnel from the utilities business side. Those are experts that have been doing this work for potentially decades, of course, and are very focused on tactics of specific programs, and don't necessarily have a strategic view in terms of the larger context of the policy that this commission is working on. We would like to see people attending who can bridge that gap. So, without putting too fine a point on it, We would like to see some of our regulatory frequent flyers attend those energy efficiency forums in addition to the energy efficiency subject matter experts that currently attend.
So it sounds like the maybe call for action here is to think about new types of programs, kind of at that grassroots local level that can help us to kind of meet our objectives. And one example I know that you shared with me is, during a recent rulemaking where we expanded the hard to reach from just being low income. And so if you haven't had a program in the last 5 years, you qualify. So there is an opportunity to kind of, go and fill a gap that maybe hasn't been addressed in the past. So I think, we're looking for new thoughts, for new ideas, for new approaches, and then, getting, I think as Connie mentioned, the two kind of people who engage and participate with us to work together along with the commission. I guess from your standpoint, it sounds like that would be beneficial.
Exactly. Thank you, Commissioner. Especially we are looking for inputs on engagement where the utilities can improve, especially to ensure that the utility energy efficiency program design reflects on the regulatory changes like you mentioned, and there be a more focus on long-term peak demand reductions in their program design. So that is specifically, yes, that would be wonderful.
Yeah, go ahead, Connie. No, please go ahead.
I was just going to say, Ramya and I were speaking about this and thought that we would bring it up today to your attention on the 2-year anniversary of the division. But signal we'd like to continue having a dialogue with you all about your goals for this division and come again to an upcoming open meeting a few months out.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, with all the discussion around the numbers of large loads coming here, discussions around long-term peak energy demand reduction are ripe to have right now. So I appreciate all the work and trying to think outside of kind of the current framework to ways we can achieve that peak demand reduction long-term going forward.
Thank you. Just want to also quickly inform that, Cyrus stole my thunder. We do have...
He always does that.
We are planning to host virtual sessions in April and May where the outside of ERCOT and ERCOT utilities can come and present their 2027 plans and budget in a virtual session, and they will do that after they file what is called the EPR, the Energy Efficiency Plans and Report, on April 1st. So that way all the stakeholders have an opportunity to come prepared to these meetings to ask questions, which Cyrus, I know, has been waiting to do. So this is a PSA. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramya. All right, next is item number 46. That's project number 58847, agency reports to the 90th Texas Legislature.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Ava Pinehart for Commission staff. Last session, the legislature passed House Bill 5323, which created an 8-member committee focused on 3 areas of policy in the ERCOT region, those being energy waste, energy efficiency, and demand response. This Energy Waste Advisory Committee is intended to foster interagency collaboration, helping to boost grid reliability by increasing participants' awareness of each other's regulatory jurisdictions and finding opportunities for program and policy expansion. Statute requires the committee to meet on a quarterly basis and to submit a report on its findings to the legislature every even year by December 1st. The committee's 8 members each oversee programs relating to energy efficiency, energy waste, or demand response, and the PUCT is designated as the committee chair. It is also charged with providing administrative support to this committee. And finally, we, along with all other committee members, will participate in the review and recommendation of programs and policies for all participating members. Our first Energy Waste Advisory Committee meeting will take place at the end of the month on March 30th. We have initiated outreach with the help of Chairman Gleeson's office and started assembling our committee members as well as members of a staff working group. At this first meeting, we will have 2 or 3 committee members present agency overviews, which are presentations that aim to familiarize all participants with other agencies' relevant programs. These presentations will hopefully provide the baseline of information to include as background in our report to the legislature at the end of the year. Finally, we will be publishing an agenda with further details on our first meeting by the end of this week, and it will be available on our public website. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Appreciate the layout. Is this your first time in an open
This
meeting?
is my first time.
All right, brilliant. And we, commissioners, we will colloquially be terming this committee the EWAC, Energy Waste Advisory Committee. And yeah, staff and I will provide updates after the meetings. Want to make sure you all are really in tune with any type of recommendations or reports that we have to put out, and appreciate all of the input and willingness from other state agencies to provide folks to help us out on this.
I look forward to the chair's ongoing and ever-expanding leadership empire.
Appreciate the support, Commissioner.
Ewok is Star Wars, right? Yeah.
That's what I'm told.
Empire.
That was good.
Yes. Yeah.
That was a good one. It was a
Thank you.
good one.
Thank you. Thank
All right.
you.
Thanks, y'all. Appreciate it. So Sheila, I know I want to be sensitive to the court reporter. I thought at this point, why don't we take a brief 10-minute recess to give her a break, and we will reconvene at 11:35. Okay, we will reconvene the PUC open meeting at 11:36 a.m. Next on the agenda is item number 48. That's project number 59432, transmission and distribution pole structural integrity and service quality standards.
There you go. Should be green. There you go.
Got it. Thank you, everybody. Good morning, Commissioners. Julie Blocker for Commission staff. Item number 48 is a PSA to interested persons on materials filed for stakeholder comment in project number 59432. These materials relate to staff's implementation of Senate Bill 1789 from the 89th regular session. And those materials include a request for information on existing pole inspection and maintenance practices, questions for comment on rulemaking issues, and materials depicting how staff is currently thinking about those issues. So comments on the RFI are due April 10th, and comments on the questions for comment and the other materials are due April 27th. Staff plans to use stakeholders' feedback on these materials to develop a new rule for publication later this year. Nice high level.
Commissioners, questions?
Quick question. Once we've developed the pole integrity standards, how will those be rolled out with new requirements in general for the utilities? Do you have an idea of that yet, or to be determined?
Can you say a little bit more about what you mean by that?
Oh, sorry, Connie, do you have?
So they'll be in the form of a commission rule.
Okay.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Yeah, easy question. Yes, they will be in rule.
Right. Wonderful. Thank you.
I think the only thing I would add is obviously we want comments, so encourage a lot of engagement on this issue from all interested parties and stakeholders.
Yeah, and if I may, I would like to draw attention there, as Julie said, are 2 sets of questions going out. One is an RFI for seeking information specifically from the utilities and other entities that will be subject to this rule about their current practices. So that is an RFI that's that has specific questions that we want answered about current practices in the field. The other set is a request for comments, and that is the place to put in your policy ideas and your recommendations and so on. So anyone can file in response to the questions for comment. The RFI is only for the affected entities.
Appreciate that clarification, Connie.
Sounds good.
Commissioners, anything else? Okay. The next is item number 49. That's project number 59431, distribution pole management and inspection plans, proposal for publication.
Yes, so still me, Julie Blocker for Commission staff. Item number 49, like you said, is staff's recommended proposal for publication of new 16 TAC 2563 in project number 59431. The proposed rule would require entities with distribution poles to file with the Commission a plan for the management and inspection of those poles initially by January 1, 2027. We also have contemplated a update cadence. If y'all have questions about that or want us to lay it out, we're happy to do so. But this rule would also require entities to file annual updates on their implementation of those plans and their inspection results for distribution poles by May 1 of each year.
Thank you, Julie. Obviously, given recent history, this rule extremely important, ensuring that utilities are putting in their due diligence to inspect and ensure the integrity of poles. Commissioners, thoughts or questions on the PFP?
No thoughts or questions, just appreciate the work on it due to the importance of the matters and really encourage stakeholder input in it all.
I'm thankful for the legislature for providing this and for the work you're doing to implement it. It's very important, so thank you.
It's an integral part, I guess, of all the things that we're doing to promote resiliency and reliability.
I will entertain a motion to approve the proposal for publication.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. Thank you. All right, item number 52 is project number 41210, information related to the Southwest Power Pool Regional State Committee, and Commissioner Jackson has an update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I attended the SPP Energy Synergy Summit in Dallas last week and had the privilege of moderating a panel on large loads with participants from Evergy, Google, and Nextera. I also attended the CARE team meeting where we were focusing on transmission upgrades larger than 345 kV. There are significant high voltage lines already approved or being added in SPP's footprint. We also began discussing a rubric to evaluate potential cost allocation methodologies and a process for narrowing down options. Our next meeting is in April. End of report.
Thank you for that update, Kathleen. Commissioners, questions?
Good.
All right. Next on the agenda is project number 58402. That's item 58. Calendar year 2025 updates to Chapter 22 procedural rules, subchapters K through O. This is a PFA. Hi, Mac. Oh, and Commissioner Hjaltman filed a memo.
Oh.
Yeah. Would you like to lay out your memo? Thank you. Would you like to lay out your memo first, or would you like to let
Mac, you can lay
staff?
out first.
Okay.
It's fine.
You're good with that?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad.
Excuse me. A memo was filed. My name is Mackenzie Arthur for Commission staff on project 58402. Commissioner Hjaltman filed a memo on page limits for briefs.
You want to lay out your memo?
Sure, I'll lay out my memo. Again, thank you, Mac, for all your work on this. I know it's been a fun endeavor. However, as I did lay out in my memo, I have concerns with one particular section relating to the briefs submitted to the Commission, specifically the language setting page limits. When we consider the complexity, some of the cases that we have, I think limiting them to a certain page number might not be the best route. Our ALJs are perfectly smart enough to instruct parties if they want to have less rather than more. So I think we should have that language removed. Happy to answer questions.
And currently, there are no page limits in our rules,
Right,
correct?
correct.
Commissioners, thoughts or questions?
No, I think it's good. I think there's some, on first reading, I understood the idea of putting page limits in there. I thought it was a well-intended idea, especially with, you can have some really wild filings, especially when people begin to use artificial intelligence functions. But also then on reconsideration of the types of items that we do see before us, that in the length and the intentional, a lot of it is pre-filed testimony as well. And so I do think a limitation would hinder in some certain scenarios. So I appreciate all the effort, though. I know these procedural rules are not the easiest to think about and unintended consequences. So thank y'all.
So understand, first of all, the initial expectation that we would somehow, encourage people to be brief and to the point, and I think that's always preferred. But we also want to make sure that we're in a position on some of the cases that you talked about to get all the information that we need. So I just really want to thank you for all the work on this. And this is the third set, right? So is this the third and final set?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so congratulations. It's, it's those things that you just kind of do day in and day out that sometimes you don't get a lot of credit for because they're not new or different, but they keep the ship moving forward. And so you're very, very much attention to detail and very much appreciate your work on this.
Yeah, and I'll just echo that. Every time we've talked to you about this role, I mean, you're beautifully reminding of it and like where this came from, the origination of it, the changes and why the changes. It is so incredibly helpful. As someone that I love to look at a red line, and you are fantastic with helping explain why and what and where. It's been really, really helpful, Mac. Thank you.
So I think we're all in agreement with your memo.
Wonderful. Well, then I move that we adopt a revised proposal for adoption with modifications consistent with the memo.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
A second.
Motion is second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion prevails. Thank you, Mac. All right, item number 60 is an update from our commission council. I think, Sheila, you had a brief update around postings that we're going to have on the agenda going forward related to net metering arrangements.
Yes. Just wanted to make an announcement that we have some pending petitions for net metering approval. And because of the 60-day statutory deadline on this for the commission to make a decision, there's the possibility for commission-held hearing in those dockets. And when there's the possibility for commission-held hearing, we typically put those dockets as standing items on the agendas in case something procedural comes up that needs to be discussed. But just to let everyone know that for all of the pending net metering petitions, we will put those as standing items, which it really just means it's posted for the agenda. The commission may or may not take action, but you have the option if necessary. And they will remain standing items as long as those petitions are pending.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I think if we didn't say something and they just all of a sudden start showing up, we'd probably get a lot of phone calls about why that's on the agenda. So appreciate that, Sheila. Okay, and I think last item 61, discussion and possible action regarding customer service issues, including but not limited to correspondence and complete issues. And I think Mr. Hoke.
Thank you. Mike Hoke with Commission staff. As Cyrus also prefaced earlier, Senate Bill 1697 required us to create a website to educate customers who are considering solar panels, residential solar panels. That site is live thanks to the wonderful work of our amazing communications team and the great input from stakeholders. It's actually part of our consumer hub. It's kind of structured as a list of questions that customers should ask and educate themselves about before they consider, before they enter a contract. The retail electric providers, electric co-ops, and munis are required to link to that page from their website. So I wanted to make this announcement to let them know that that site is live. They'll also be getting an email later today directly to the reps, and our partners in public power and the electric cooperatives will help us inform their members. This is also in parallel to the effort at TDLR regarding the regulation of solar panel sales and installers. I've been participating in that rulemaking. TDLR is doing a great job, and the stakeholders have been incredibly collaborative in that process as well. So again, thanks to the communications team and everybody, all the stakeholders who helped provide input. So I think it'll be a good resource.
Thanks, Mike. Commissioners, questions, thoughts?
Thank you, Mike.
Thanks.
Appreciate all the efforts in publicizing, socializing the website going live.
Thank you.
All right. Commissioners, that's all I have. Do you all have anything else?
Just one more comment. I was going to thank Connie. I saw that legal was at the dais today, and I just wanted to send them some love. I know that they do a ton of work getting prepared for open meetings, even though we can't always talk to them about most of those items since they're contested. But their input and their work is very valuable and needed, and it does not go unnoticed. So I wanted to thank them for being here today.
Thank you, Commissioner, and they appreciate the opportunity to appear before you.
Awesome.
And Connie, I promise I will get better at going slower so they're not just walking up in a meal. So we'll
gotta get steps in.
iterate on this, but agree with the sentiment, Commissioner Johnson. Thank you. Sheila, we're all good.
Yeah.
All right. With there being no further business before us, this meeting of the Public Utility Commission of Texas is hereby adjourned.